This panel is really about the how as opposed to the what of digital transformation. I guess everybody has had, ad nauseum about digital transformation. So we'll say, okay, how we've done it, and each of these speakers will talk about, their view, their experiences. I also promised when we launched the paper that I'll talk a little bit about the paper as well. So just a little bit about, myself. I'm with a company called Infogain. I run Infogain for the last 2 years. Been in the business for many, many, many years now, more than I love to count, actually. And, we are a service provider. We essentially help companies engineer business outcomes, and that is the paper which is out there. This is largely our experience with the whole digital transformation journey, and, the reasons why we thought this whole journey fails is, 3 reasons really. One is that organizations do not appreciate the whole digital vision, or what is the vision that is have. That is number one. And then they're not able to share and get that vision, by the whole organization behind them, and therefore the leadership fails. And third is really about the talent. Most organizations that we work with, do not appreciate how talent is important in this new journey that they are going through. Sitting in Silicon Valley, we all get lost and think that digital transformation is the norm everywhere, but we work both in the digital, in the valley, as well as outside in the main street, as I like to call it, and we think that the new battlefield is really the whole digital battlefield and what the business model is going to work out. So with that intro, I'll just request my panel to please introduce themselves, and maybe Naresh, you could start. And
okay. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. So I'm Naresh Shanker, and I'm the CIO for HP. This is the printing, personal systems, and 3D additive manufacturing business. Been with the company for a little over 6 years as a CIO, and was much involved with the pre and post separation. If you think through, and I've followed through the entire split that we went through. I led the split for our side of the business. So prior to that, I was with Palm Computing, the mobile computing company that HP acquired. And I've had stints at Agilent Technologies, Medical Products Group, so different fields and different industry verticals in very similar roles. Much of what we have been on the journey over the last, I'd say, 6 years is actually moving our business from, especially because the economy to a large extent has shifted to much more of what I'd call an instant on or on-demand economy. Most of our businesses are also pivoting from fundamentally being hardware manufacturers, OEMs, to how do you move into solutions and services, which makes it much simpler for consumers and enterprise customers to basically consume our technology. Whether it's the whole solution experience, whether it's product support, service, whatever the case may be. But the whole idea is to move our entire business from a traditional business into this new space, which then becomes an opportunity to spawn off a whole new range of monetization opportunities. And so that, in essence, is what we've actually been working on in terms of how do you make this transition. And that's the journey we've been on for the most part of the 6 years that I've been leading the function. So
thanks, Naresh.
With that, let me pause.
Thanks, Sunil. Can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me? Great. So my name's Vince Pizzica. I'm with a company called Technicolor, which is a leading provider of services and technologies to the media and entertainment industry. Like I think a couple of people around the table here and in the room, I'm an engineer and I'm pretty proud of it. My background is from telecoms and worked at Telstra for many years before moving my way through the industry and different locations of the world. Where I find myself now at Technicolor, where I'm responsible for corporate development is the title. But in fact, that means that I'm the head of strategy, I'm the head of M&A, I'm the head of CTO, and the head of research. So all the elements of innovation and what the company does with it and how we grow. I came here 9 years ago. I would say we're in our third transformation as a company. The first one was when I joined, was we were going through a restructure. And the company was called Thomson. That's how much of a transformation we went through. So we went from Thomson to Technicolor, a rebranding as a part of that transformation. And right now we're in the middle of our third. I would like to think our second transformation was a digital one, where we actually took the company from being a very physical oriented business. First transformation was about simplifying and correcting some of the ills of the past management. And sometimes transformation comes from the outside. It's forced on the company. It's not necessarily always from inside. The second transformation, though, was our digital transformation, where we realised that the market of consumption of entertainment was moving to digital, and we were very predominantly oriented our business models around physical distribution. So we shifted in 2014, 13-14 into that digital era, and we've been very successful with a number of transformative actions. Unfortunately, your success breeds the next phase, and that's what we're in the middle of trying to do now. And all along the way, I can tell you there are many scars and many lessons of what to do and what not to do, and look forward to discussing that today.
That's awesome.
Debbie, please.
Yep. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, I'm Debbie Day. I work for Mitchell. You probably don't know who Mitchell is. They're a 72-year-old company based in San Diego. Mitchell was started by Glenn Mitchell in 1946, who began writing down repair procedures on cars in books. And that's how we began our company. And nowadays, of course, those books are in software. And if you've been in an auto accident, chances are that you have had your damage estimated, or gosh forbid, that you've been in a total loss, your vehicle valued by a company like Mitchell. There's only a few of us in this space. There's a lot of intellectual property that goes into repairing a vehicle. It's not like it used to be, and I'll definitely talk about the challenges of repairing a vehicle in 2018 versus even 10 years ago, which has been said, there's all kinds of ways that innovation or transformation is foisted on you. In my role at Mitchell, I am the EVP and General Manager of a division around the auto physical damage space. I've been there 2 years, computer science undergrad, but now lead all functions within the company, product, engineering, marketing, sales, what have you. And the last thing I'll leave you with as an intro is traditionally, half of our revenue has been from repair facilities, the people that fix cars, and half of it has been through insurance companies and processing claims. And given what's going on in the world with the complexity of vehicles, there's been a big emergence of the automaker into this conversation. And I think that gives us a lot of opportunities, and that's where a lot of my personal time is spent, is looking forward to that future.
Thank you, Debbie. It will be fascinating to hear your journey in a minute, because it's a 72-year-old company which has truly transformed and become a digital platform company, and we'll get to that in a minute. Naresh, let me start you with the first question. How does a traditional box company like HP, which is it's probably 1,000 years old is probably what I'm going to say, maybe a zero less, 100 years old. How does a company like that, which is everywhere and anywhere, how do you go through that journey like that? So your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think what was interesting is as we came off, we're a heritage company. Our DNA is actually very deeply embedded in hardware and hardware engineering. And what was really interesting is as we started to see the entire markets pivoting, as I mentioned earlier, the whole economy is pivoting to what I'd call this whole instant on-demand economy. And so, which is pay for what you use, pay for what you consume, and pay when you consume it. And so what we need to do is step back and say, what is fundamentally our business strategy as a company as we go forward? And there was a lot of emphasis around what I'd say is an omni-channel go-to-market play, as well as everything as a service. How do we now pivot into moving up the value proposition from being a hardware player into being more of a solutions services player? And so we started to think through and come up with a whole range of business models across all of our lines of business. And so in the print space, we've got Instant Ink, which is a complete subscription-based set of services. We've got everything from management services. You've got a whole range of these services, which are really moving quite in an accelerated way into what we call everything as a service. The same applies to even on the personal system side, which is everything around client compute solutions, mobility solutions, AR, VR solutions, things of that sort. Again, looking at solutions and services, now we are starting to look at evolving those business models into what we call device as a service, which is creating a complete managed service or 360 service for devices, regardless of form factors, operating systems, et cetera. So even that entire business is moving down that path. So the whole idea was to look at how do you start looking, because we have a ton of data. And when people ask me, what is the next generation of technology? It's data. You know, the future of technology is data, and all generations of technology has everything to do about data. So
data is the new oil, so to speak.
Exactly. I mean, so we have so much of data for 500 plus million customers around the world for PC, print, things of that sort. We've started to look at all that data to see how do you find ways to monetize that data. And so we've started looking at building out new ecosystems of solutions and services that actually are moving into what I'd call, supporting what I call the digital economy, right? This whole new digital economy. And so coming up with recurring business revenue streams and alternative forms of revenue streams that are much more recurring in nature is starting to be part of the DNA in terms of how we go forward. So we have fundamentally looked at the everything as a service strategy, the omni-channel go-to-market strategy, things of that sort, and start pivoting all of our lines of business to support that strategy. And then we're starting to build out all of the underlying architectures to make sure we can actually drive these new monetization opportunities. So that's fundamentally how we have started to look at this entire business.
No, it was fascinating. You know, 5 years ago when I first asked Naresh when he was with Meg, and the company was still not broken. As you know, HP's eventually got broken into 4 different organizations now. But you know, at that particular point of time, it was, oh my God, it is a 100-year-old company, different monolith, different culture. So you know, it was fascinating to watch that journey over the last 5 years. You know, 72-year-old company, you know, 72-year-old startup is what I should say. And you know, we have been working with you for the last 15 years, and we have seen you in many, many different avatars. Tell us your journey, Debbie.
Yeah, I think I'll start where we just were, which is, you know, how do you transition your company? I'll start with that. We have historically been a subscription. You know, if you think about how you're going to repair a car, you know, every month the vehicles roll out new things on the line, and the repair procedures change, and there's new backup cameras in the cars. And I don't know if you know, but cars actually have more lines of code in them than a Boeing Dreamliner, and that's a standard car. That is not some you know, high-end European import anymore. And so the future is upon us, and so the transition from a subscription model is one we're making now, and we're going to be offering what we'll call a transactional model to be able to fix even a single car. For example, a Cadillac CT6 has so much aluminum on it, you know, you can't get that repaired only in a couple of hundred locations in the United States. That's true of all kinds of programs. So this idea of when you need it, I want to consume that service, that's transition one. When Mitchell thinks about it, I was reading an article in Forbes last week, and they made a distinction. This guy, Daniel Newman, wrote this article. It's only a couple pages. And it made a distinction between innovation and digital transformation, which I liked. One is that innovation is this spark, and it can happen. And we have innovation. We've got computer vision and machine learning with artificial intelligence running against cars, looking at photos to help humans understand damage. Okay, so that's what I call a real innovation. But we also, innovation can then spark transformation and vice versa. One's leads and one's the other. And on that one, transformation for us at least is a process. And with that you need, and that's one of the things I like about this panel today, is I actually think the how is harder than the what. I think it's easy to figure out what you should do, but I think it's really hard to make the transition. And the execution is a big challenge, and it can take time because you're not dealing with just people and process, you're dealing with tooling. And so all 3 legs of the people, process, tools, change management is so important. So, and the last thing I'll leave you with is the reason I say that is just this morning there was a piece of research that came out, and this is, we're a lot in the insurance business, and there's a big drive for insurtech and new competitors, new markets, autonomous vehicles, what's going to happen. And as consumers, we probably all, really care about all these topics. But what it asked insurance companies, very traditional, risk-averse people, how many of you believe that artificial intelligence will change the future of insurance? 90%. How many of you are already investing in artificial intelligence? 70%. How many are you going to spend more in 18 than 17? 70%. And this is all across the cycle. I'm talking about underwriting, claims, fraud, and this is a traditional business. So it's not just Mitchell and the solutions that we make, it's our customers are changing, our partners are changing, our competitors are changing. We got to change. And that's, as we enter into this how, there's a lot really to consider.
It's fascinating. I mean, both of them spoke, that this journey is not a quick journey. So it's going to be a long journey. So you have to have Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3 as a part of this journey. And the second point which came out from both of them was that they're multifaceted. So there is a customer at the end of it, there is a competitor, there is internal stakeholders, investors, many sides to the how. It's just not one side, right? Vince, why don't you take one of them? Why don't you start with customer and say, as you went through the whole transformation at Technicolor, your views and your perspective, and what did you see from a customer perspective?
Yes, I think it's interesting to note that across all the panel members, innovation is at the heart of what they're trying to do. We're addressing a market. We've got technology changes, market trends that impact us, and we try to develop solutions for that. You ultimately, in a transformational set of challenges, need to understand, firstly, that everything's up for grabs. So you've got to be prepared to make changes to the things that you think are fundamental. But you also have to have anchor points, and one of the anchor points is your customers. And it's not so much your customers, it's the end consumers. And I think that's important because we are in this transition of blending of the so-called convergence, which I loved hearing 30 years ago, and we certainly still talk about it now. Understanding the real flow of cash, the real flow of value in the marketplace that you're participating in. What are the real trends? What are consumers of the ultimate products of your work? What are they doing? And we've actually applied that framework right from the very beginning in 2008-9 when I first joined. We had many decisions to make. Obviously, where you are today is the other anchor point. What you have, what are the assets? What are the capabilities? What do you do today? That is a starting point. Trying to work out where to go, you look at the customers. What are they doing? What are the trends? In our case, it was media entertainment consumption. I've always said when I first joined was that I don't know what's going to happen with televisions. I don't know what's going to happen with TV cameras. We used to make $250,000 TV cameras, and my wife had just bought a $5,000 Canon 5D. Sorry, it was $5,000 Canon 5D, and it could do everything this $250,000 camera could do. I don't think we're going to be making $250,000 cameras in the future. Right. So you've got to take that step back, look at the natural trends of technology, see what the marketplace is going to do, and then try to position yourself to have the capabilities that are going to serve that market. And I think that the other thing that customers play a part of, and it's very important, is whilst customers don't always know what the right solution is, they do know what their problems are. And you need to listen to them. Right? That is the best way to find out what you should do, is to go and listen to the problems the customers are having.
Yeah, we would never had an iPhone otherwise, I mean, if we had listened to them. But Debbie, just, the point which Vince talked about, that not only look at your immediate customers, but your eventual customers through the value chain. Tell us about you, because from where you are, the eventual customer is 2 or 3 legs away. So, your perspective and your journey there.
Yeah. Well, you guys are all our eventual customers. I already said, I hope you don't get in an auto accident, but every 7 years, statistically, you will. So here's what we know. We know that consumers want to be involved in the claim. It's very hard on people's lives when they get into an accident, even if it's a minor one. It means, you can't pick up your child at soccer, and it means, you can't take your mom to the doctor, whatever it means. But we think our mission is to restore people's lives back as quickly as possible after an accident. and we just do that through software. So if the end consumer is our ultimate customer, I'll offer two things. And it's how our mission has changed. We've always thought of ourselves as a B2B company, but first of all, one of the things that we did last year is, everybody's walking around with a computer in their pocket called a phone, and we now have, at first notice of loss, consumers able to walk around the car and take pictures of that damage. Consumers want to do that, and then they expect to be informed about the process. So it's not 3 days later your insurance company calls you and say we're ready to make an appointment. Those days are over. Okay, so if you think that's going to be the
Just to add to it, Debbie. Debbie's on a mission to make all our lives easier, where she's saying that the processing time of a claim, God forbid if an accident, should be in few minutes and not few weeks or few days. So Debbie,
actually the average cycle time is 14 days.
Yeah.
And very little of that is getting the car worked on. It's about all the things that have to happen in the process. The second thing I'll say is the emergence of the automaker, and I referenced this early, and I just want to talk about it quickly. It used to be that the automaker wasn't involved in the process, and by this I mean GM, Fiat Chrysler, Ford, Mercedes, BMW. That's what I mean by automaker. But now their research says that when a car is improperly repaired, that the customer will almost immediately turn that car back in and switch brands. That's why they care about how cars are getting repaired. And I've already said cars are getting more complex. So that's harder. So they care now about what facility repairs it, how your experience is. And so, just last weekend I was in New Jersey, and Mitchell's newest customer is an automaker. And this is unprecedented. And we're going to manage their program for them, because we understand that vision, and this is public consumption, so you can go and figure out who we just signed up. But it's GM. It's the largest automaker, 1 in 5 cars, and we're really excited about this new mission, which is taking care of the consumer and getting them back in the vehicle as fast as possible after an accident.
Debbie, could you also touch on, maybe Naresh, you could chime in as well. See, as just to take the GM point, and congratulations again for the,
Thank you.
It's a big one, right? Because you now have a new set of customers which have opened up. So it's just not that the business transformation which is changing, not the new business model, but you're now opening up markets which traditionally were not available to your company. Naresh, tell us, not only are we seeing new customers, we're also seeing new competitors, whom you could collaborate and compete at the same time. Your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting is, just keying off what Debbie was talking about, is if you look at our personal systems ecosystem, the devices or the print ecosystem, we have started to find ways to actually differentiate ourselves from our competitors. So for example, we have launched this past year the most secure PC on the planet. We've also launched the most secure print ecosystem on the planet. These are all solutions that are designed from use cases that we work closely and intimately with both partners and customers. So if you think about the personal systems ecosystem, we've got over 7 to 9 solutions that are at the OS level, above and below the OS level, to secure browsing, things of that sort, because the cyber threats in the industry are fairly extensive. And so we've built that entire ecosystem of solutions and services to be able to make sure that that ecosystem is very strong. And it's also one that's monetizable with solutions and services, as an example, above the box. The whole print ecosystem has also moved into that landscape, because if you think of print, it's still got it's an intelligent machine with a significant amount of processing power, storage, compute, and also contains very sensitive documentation that you tend to move from your device or from any other part of the ecosystem. And so that content becomes valuable and also needs to be secure. So the whole print ecosystem has also moved into a whole range of security solutions and services. And so for us, we're starting to build more and more of the ecosystem with our partners and customers to really make sure we can truly differentiate our portfolio from the rest of the competitive landscape that we play with or play in. So I think to a large extent, when you talk about the partner ecosystem, there's a significant amount of synergies that we bring to bear, because when you look at the security landscape for both personal systems and print ecosystems, we don't go and build all of these technologies and vertically integrate ourselves, right? So what we do is actually have a very robust partner ecosystem, and they work with us closely for us to build out the entire fabric of these solutions, and then they're offered as a service. So it's a subscription-based service, things of that sort. So that is just one example of a completely new monetized
Thanks. I really
ecosystem.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Vince, if you could pick up, so we got customers, we talked about competitors. Let's just talk within the organization, right? Sure. How do you manage stakeholders? How do you manage mindsets? How do you manage the cultural aspect of this? You know, what was your journey like? And
Yeah, it was challenging. I think that's back to what Debbie said. I think execution is fundamental to this. You can have great plans. It's actually very easy to create a vision as to what the solutions need to be, but actually doing it is hard. And probably the most important thing is to enable all of the teams and people in the organisation to be able to deliver and give them a mission, give them a call to action. That starts with, in our case, using very clear signals. And remembering that people operating within the business are operating within what they think is right to do. No one's really out there trying to screw the company. They're trying to do what they think is right. From the top down, the management has to communicate properly where the company's trying to go and why it has to go there, so that people can enlist into that call to arms. And we actually set out there to set it, and in fact, as I said, we changed our brand. That was a very explicit thing, not a cheap thing to do, but we took the company through the journey as to why we were changing the brand and what the new brand meant to signify about what the company wanted to do. That was pretty fundamental. And we workshopped all of the characteristics of the brand, what was important about the brand in the marketplace that was going to be delivering on the experience we wanted our customers and their customers to have from being a customer of Technicolor. So I think it does involve new people as much as it does involve the old people, though. Talent is this never-ending pipeline of people that you need to bring in because of their mindsets, because they're more up-to-date in the technologies, because they're more up-to-date in the market. That doesn't mean that you have to be brutal with your existing teams, but some people won't make the journey. And it's important to realise this tension you have is that some people have turf to protect, some people have mindsets that have come from the way things have been. You have to send signals about the company changing, and sometimes that doesn't, in people leaving. But you have to find a way to do that without hurting the culture. It has to be about embracing the direction we're going and doing that. There's processes that need to change. There's a bunch of things, but if you don't get the people on board as a part of that journey right at the start, and you don't constantly communicate to them about it, then you've got no chance.
Oh, thank you. And Debbie, just pick on that, because I mean, just that 2-3 things come to my mind. One is what Jeff Bezos used to say about, that you will not have any teams which require more than 2 pizza rules. So he used to have that as one, and second he used to say about, from a constant reinvention of the talent within the company. I mean, that is the journey. So, Mitchell went through, I remember 4 or 5 phases. So tell us about, the stakeholders within.
Yeah, I liked what you said. I think you need to be very explicit about what your culture is, and when it's time to change it. It's not something that's just going to happen because you're sort of thinking about it. It's just not like that. You need to, and we're going through one of those right now. We're working with partners in leadership, the Oz principle, change the culture, change the game. They've come into Mitchell because we now know we need another step given where we're going to be next. We've defined new cultural beliefs, we've assessed our people, and it's going to be it's a year-long process in getting a new set of cultural beliefs and having people embrace them and making it theirs.
Debbie, when you came in,
Yep.
How many people were reporting to you 2 years ago, and how many of them are still?
Of my directs, I have 8 direct reports, 5 are new. 3 are have been with the business 15 plus years. So it's a nice blend, but it was clear to me that we needed to make change.
But, I just want to highlight that point because, as I've argued in the paper as well, that the how, people forget how important talent is. And almost all companies which go through this transformation, either they realize it early, or they have enough war scars and experience, expensive lessons that without talent and without teamwork, this is not happening. So I just wanted to, give you that perspective especially from the war rooms and the trenches that we have been. Hopefully that brings out. Naresh, I'm going to pick up, so we've touched many aspects to this, but what should we not do? What has been the learnings here, and what are the war stories if some, most of these companies are starting out here or especially outside of the valley? What would you say, please do not do that?
Yeah. So when we started rolling out our entire transformation journey, coming on almost 4, 5, 6 years now, what we decided and discovered was we moved our entire architecture landscape from on-premise technology. A lot of the technology was hardwired. We deal with tremendous scale in terms of scale and complexity. And when we started moving with the transformation journey from an outside-in perspective, we layered the entire customer experience. So our focus was around transforming the whole CRM landscape on the back end, all of our SAP and ERP transformations to support this entire software enabled set of business models and architectures. What we discovered was that we were now moving into much more what I call cloud-first, mobile-first architectures. So that was fundamentally what we were pivoting off, because we came, as a heritage company, we came off a complete landscape of on-premise technology, which is all hardwired. We have today over almost approximately 1,500 applications that run the company. And our goal is to get to less than between 600 and 700. But a lot of it is tethered around what I call mobile-first and cloud-first architectures. And this massive migration, what's interesting is that we are now moving into highly network-sensitive solutions, because previously they were all hardwired. So now you're moving into most cloud architectures around the world. You're moving into Wi-Fi and more mobile and 3G, 4G architectures to run your solutions, especially when you start moving into more cloud and mobile-first architectures. And because of the dynamic nature, because of the real-time, I talked about the real-time economy around an instant on-demand economy, you're pretty much tethered to your ecosystem real-time. And so what we discovered was we couldn't any longer use simulated data to test these ecosystems. We actually had to run very, very large volumes of real data through the environment for testing so that you could actually mimic the responses you were getting on a heavily sensitized network-centric environment. And we saw a lot of issues with, there's a big comparison between running and validating your entire ecosystem using simulated data versus real data, and more transactional batch data versus real-time data. So we saw significant differences making this pivot.
Now we can appreciate why the how becomes difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because at that scale, it's not a Mickey Mouse scale, right? At that scale, if you have to now operate, everywhere, every time, but with the real time, this thing, that scale becomes huge, right? I'm going to let you ask questions because I think the time is running out for us. So, let people ask questions. But before, as we get questions, take the same question, Vince and Debbie, and what are the learnings? Naresh pointed out 3 of them, but what else do you think?
Well, I'll just do 2. So
Yeah.
I guess that means you do 1. But
Yeah,
sorry.
I'll have one.
So,
Mine's easy.
So the 2 I have is that make it safe to fail for people. It's very important that you bring into your culture and to the people at the working level and your leaders that if you try something and it doesn't work out, that you're not going to be punished for it. And we definitely made that mistake early on. We tried a lot of different things. Some things worked, some things didn't. In some cases, not all, in some cases, when the team failed, our HR people processed them out of the company. And that is actually the worst thing we could have done. And it wasn't really something we were immediately aware of. But once we became aware, hang on, we're seeing a contradictory signal.
Yeah.
Try something different. Step away from your day-to-day job. Tackle the challenge. If you fail, we'll find you're going to
celebrate failure as well.
So the second thing is don't get stuck in dogma. When something's not, it's an old adage that fail fast, all those sort of things. But it's true, and it's amazing whether it's a CEO, a divisional manager, a project manager. When the signals are there, that you want to see it out, you want to keep pushing through. But there are times when it's time to stop. and never let yourself go too far on a project.
Okay, Debbie.
Yeah, mine's a quick one. I have this phrase that is, a fool with a tool is still a fool. And one of the things that, and I love that one, because every so often you'll hear people start chanting that, oh, we need this new technology, and then that's going to be the silver bullet that solves all our problems. And so whenever I hear that, I just like put that one out there. So I invite you to memorize a fool with a tool is still a fool, because it's not about just the tech. It's about everything that we're doing.
Oh, no, that's a good one. That's a great time to pause. And yes, sir, please.
Yeah, so I would like to give a challenge to Michelle, a company, and maybe
Mitchell.
present an opportunity
Yep.
as well. I completely agree with you that the automobile industry is going through a major transformation.
Yep.
They are becoming more complex, but as a result of which the repair times have gone up significantly higher.
Yep.
What used to get repaired in less than a week, my Tesla got slightly dented. It took 12 weeks. I don't know what the hell was going on behind the scenes. So you can go.
I do.
You can go. You
talked
can
about this
go.
last night.
You can
We
go
did.
inside those corporations
That's right.
and do end-to-end fixing, not just the insurance-related issues.
So
That's
we'll test
exactly
Debbie
right.
after 2 bottles of wine. Does she still remember the last evening's conversation? Debbie said?
We talked about Tesla. You know, each automaker is different. One of the things, and I'll talk about, I accept the challenge, first of all, because Mitchell's in a unique place to help. The automakers, as much as they know about those vehicles, they don't understand about what it takes to get the cars fixed, which is what I was saying. With Tesla, when, you know, they went to market, they've got a fantastic car. They never anticipated that it would get in an accident. And so, you know, that sounds like a crazy statement, doesn't it? But we are just rolling off the line, we at Mitchell, repair procedures so people can get those things fixed this month. And it's because they just didn't talk about not understanding the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've been educating, they're here in California also. And, you know, they're great vehicles, and there's a lot of people driving them. So it will get better, and we definitely are working on it.
So, you know, so it's a very important point, right? And thank you for that question, because
Yeah, it's great.
As you know, yes, organizations can transform themselves, but you're not transforming just yourself. You know, as you transform yourself, there's a whole ecosystem which has to be transformed.
Yes.
Because in
Yes.
Tesla example, as you know, Debbie, when she started the panel, she said it's a computer on wheels, right? So yes, it's a great computer on wheels, but lo and behold, the computer on wheel is going to get dented, unfortunately, and now you need to have a system all over the country which supports the repair of that. And if you don't, then you get into a, you know,
12 week
12
repair.
weeks. You know, we have heard stories which are, you know, far worse. So, you know, I'm sorry to say, but 12 weeks sounds like a good plan from the stories that it really is from the stories you heard. I'm really sorry to say that. But anybody else? Any other questions? Anything else that? We are out of time.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
The panel is going to be announced. You guys can catch
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you again.